Okay guys, I'm going to show you how to use the Gina foiling gel, and we are going to use it with the brand new stencils. This one is called Shimmering Roses, and I'm going to start off by actually just inking the stencils. Now you can use this with or without ink, but I'm going to start with doing the inking first. All right, so, and that's just because I want to know where I want my gel, because we want to use the gel to add foil after the fact. So I need to know where I want that. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is start with, and they have in the bottom left-hand corner here, the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So I just have a piece of heavier cardstock because we're going to be using this gel. It's a mixed media. So it's a little bit heavier product. And so this is just a half a piece of cardstock cut in half. And so I'm going to do this right in the center because we're going to have to let this gel dry. So we're going to need to pick it up. So I did a half a piece so I would have edges to be able to pick it up and move it. So we're going to just put that there. I'm going to grab my blending brushes, and I think I'm going to make my roses. Let's go in with let's make them red. We have red foil, so we're going to make them red. I've been painting my roses red. And you really only want to think about pretty much like one area that you're going to foil. So we're only going to foil the center of the roses, which is the first area, and we're going to kind of come back to that in just a second. So we're going to do a light color here, which is lipstick for my first color of my roses, which isn't going to matter too much because it's going to get covered by foil. So this is just a guide for the first layer that I want here on my cards. So this doesn't need to be really too perfect or too much ink needs to go down because, like I said, this layer is going to be the layer that I want the foil to go over. And this is a really great product for anything that you want to add foil to. For instance, the candle stencils, if you just want to do the tops of the candles, the wicks, the flames, it's really great for that. I love using this product on the Gina snowflakes, which I've shown before, using a different type of product. Okay, so that's just our first layer. All right. Now we're going to go in with our second layer. I'm going to line that up. And you could actually do this in the same color since our first layer is going to get covered up. It's not going to matter. But that takes your foiling to another level. You guys have probably already been foiling the Poly-glaze. So now you're getting into a little bit of mixed media with your foiling. Now the secret here is you need to do some prep work. You have to make sure that you want to use a little bit of thicker paper because this is a gel medium. So it may cause your paper to warp a little bit. So I'm using, like I said, 100-pound, 110-pound cardstock. And you do need to let this dry. It does say an hour or until it's completely dry. I like to let this product dry overnight. If it is not completely dry, it will ooze out and flatten, and you don't want that, okay? So you want to let it to completely dry, okay? So there is our second layer, okay? We're going to change our brush now to a different color. So our next layer is our outer wreath, and you want to do all of your stenciling before you go to your foiling, because once the foiling or the gel medium is attached, you're going to have dimension to this, so it's going to be kind of hard to go back and do your stenciling. So you want to do all of your stenciling before you do your foiling, because it's going to pop up. And I'm using fresh asparagus for this color. Again, you can foil anything you want. You could foil the leaves, you can foil the flowers, but you can really only foil one part at a time, because the gel medium, once it's applied, you have to let it dry completely before you can add your gel medium to the second part. Ooh, be careful there. That is a delicate little center of the leaf, and I just knocked it out with my brush, being a little too rough. So be careful with that. Don't be like Nancy. So really, I would just pick on one area that you want to do your gel, your foiling gel. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then for my last area, there are these tiny little dots, which are little accents, little sprigs, maybe some baby's breath. And I'm going to do mine in blue raspberry. Maybe you just do those in some foil. Maybe you start easy and just do those. But I would just pick one area to foil. Do not try to foil everything, because you will just make a big mess. Sometimes less is more. Okay, once you have you've decided on what area you want to foil, and if there's no right or wrong on what you want to foil, you decide what area you want to foil. You're going to clean your stencil thoroughly. Okay, so I'm going to clean off my desk and make sure my stencil is thoroughly cleaned. So I'm going to move this and move all my other stencils out of the way. And you need to have a clean stencil. You do not want a dirty stencil. It needs to be very clean. And you need to clean your stencil immediately after you put your gel on. Do not let this stuff sit on your stencil. Okay, so obviously using red ink, stained my stencil a little bit, but for the most part, my stencil is clean. And you want a stencil that doesn't have too much delicate areas. So like I wouldn't use that leaf part because how delicate that little center piece was. That could cause some gel to go underneath the stencil, so you really don't want that either. And I'm going to dry this off. Okay, now essentially this is like a glue, and so that's what's going to cause the foil to stick to it because it's going to heat up once it goes through the fuse machine. Okay, now you're going to line this up and make sure I have it on right, okay, where you originally had it. So this was the first layer. This is no, this is number 2. I want number 1. It's not going to really matter. Okay, now it is very important you do not spray any kind of pixie spray or any kind of spray on the back of your stencils when doing this, because when you go to apply the foil will stick to any kind of adhesive you use on here. So a lot of people make that mistake and they apply some kind of a pixie spray or stencil spray. And when you go to put your foil on top, then you have pixie spray stuck all over the back of the stencil. That it sticks to your paper. Now you go to put your foil down and foil sticks to everything. So number 1, do not apply any kind of adhesive to the back of your stencil when you're doing this, okay? Number 2, make sure you are using the right kind of foil. We only want to use the toner foil, the foil that is designed for the fuse. If you are not sure what kind of foil, make sure you are checking, and it is a toner foil, not a hot foil, okay? So you'll notice that I am not using any spray or anything like that. If you want to use a little piece of tape, you can use some low tack tape to secure this. You want to make sure that the tape is easily removed, because we do need to remove this and clean this. As soon as we are done applying the gel. Okay, so I'm just going to put one piece of tape on there. All right. Now, as far as the gel comes, it does come with a lid. And you're going to want to scrape all of that excess off of there. And I do recommend putting a piece of saran wrap, press and seal, whatever it is. You press it down into the lid to keep this from drying out. And any excess can be put back into the jar, okay? You want a very thin coat of this. You do not need a lot. So you're going to use your spatula or credit card, whatever you have, and you want a very thin coat of this. And you want to try to put it on as evenly as you can. You want to make sure there are no bare spots. But less is more. You do not want globs of this. It's going to be imperfect. You're going to have hills and valleys. But you do not want a lot of this, and you want to scrape off any excess. Okay, but you can see I'm just using a very thin coat. If you make it super chunky and globby, it's going to get under your stencil. And this is why you want to make sure all of that ink is off of there, because if you have any ink left on your stencil, it could tint your gel, but it's really not going to matter because the foil is going to cover it. So don't even worry if your gel gets tinted. It's going to dry completely clear. Again, shove all of that excess back into the jar, because we want to keep all that extra goodiness. I am going to put a piece of press and seal on here, and you want to press that press and seal in there so that all of the air bubbles are dissipated. Don't just put it on top. Press it in there so there's no air bubbles. And I'm going to clean my spatula. But you'll see there's a very thin coat. And I'm just using little Clorox wipes to clean my stuff up here. And then going to gently lift this and set that aside to dry, and immediately clean your stencil. Okay, so take it up to the sink, wipe it, clean it, wash it. Do not let this dry on your stencil. Remember, it is a paste. It's like a glue. So you want to clean your surface, your tools, your stencils. Or have a warm soapy water bucket nearby. And normally the stencil you want is a stencil that has some detail, but that it doesn't, you don't want to use a thick coat. A thin coat will dry faster, and you don't want it to get underneath the stencil, okay? Not too many passes. Just go down, straight down. Don't go back and forth, up and down. Just go straight down. Don't fuss with it too much or it'll get underneath the stencil, okay? And what you're going to do is, you'll see it's kind of white and milky. And you'll see I have a couple of lines in there, but nothing too bad. There will be some hills and valleys, but you want a pretty even, thin coat. What we're going to do now is we are going to set this aside to dry. The instructions say an hour. Like I say, I like to leave it set for, you know, a couple hours. 24 hours is what I like ideally, because if this is not completely dry, and you try to run this through the machine, this is going to get squished. And when it gets squished, your foil's not going to look good. It's going to be flat roses and not shimmering roses. So we're going to let this dry and come back, and I will show you how to foil these with your fuse machine. So we'll be back. Okay, guys, I am back. And it has been about 2 hours, and my fuse foiling gel is pretty much dry. It is not tacky. You can see it is clear, and that is applied to the lighter parts of my roses. And that's what you want. You want it to be completely dry where it is not tacky anymore, okay? And you do need a heat source. So you want to use your fuse machine, okay? And I am going to use this beautiful red foil. And you're going to cover the areas where you have the foiling gel. And you want to completely cover them, okay? So we're going to cut the foil. Do not have any of the gel exposed, because if any of that oozes out, yeah, you don't want any of that. So there's a couple of things you can use. So of course you can use your folder that comes with your foiling system, your fuse foiling system, but there is also, if you are concerned, there are these craft and carrier sheets from Deco Foil. And this is where they come in handy because they are non-stick and they are designed for these kind of mixed media things because they are non-stick. And so if anything oozes out, they will be oozing out in here. So I like them for that reason. And if you get any oozing, anything that comes out, these are disposable. So these are large sheets you can cut down. You can cut them in half. So you don't have to do dusty on here. I like to do it just in case. You do not have to because, again, this is a clear gel, so there's no black spots. But you want to make sure that entire gel is covered, okay? And then you can put it in your carrier sheet, but I'm going to, because this is a big piece of paper, I'm going to put my entire cardstock piece in there, okay? And I do have my heat setting on 3, and I put that in the folded half in first, the folded half of that craft and carrier sheet in first, okay? And it's just like anything else. I want to hold this and wait till it comes out the other side. Anytime you feed anything in your machine, you never want to let it go. You always want to kind of guide it through, just holding it. And take your time. And again, I've let this dry for 2 hours just to make sure it was completely dry. Now I know someone's going to ask, well, after I foil this, couldn't I go through again and put another layer of fuse foiling gel on a different part of the stencil and foil it again? And the answer is yes, you could do that. But then what happens is you end up remelting what you've already foiled. And then what happens is it causes, anytime you run foil through twice, it causes your foil to turn matte. So that's why I only recommend doing it on one section because you want your foil to stay shiny. Notice I'm giving this a second to cool because the cooling allows the foil to transfer from the transfer sheet onto the project itself. So you always want to give it a second to cool. And then we're just going to lift and pull this off. And there it is. Now our roses have been foiled. And that's how easy it is. Now, it's not always going to be perfect. That's why I say do a nice thin layer. You're going to have little nooks and crannies because that's the nature of the gel. It's not always going to be a smooth application, but that's why I say do a nice thin layer. But that's how you use the foiling gel. So now part of my stencil is foiled, and I say just pick one area to do it in. And that's how easy it is to use the new Gina K Fuse foiling gel. So I do recommend trying this out and using this with the stencils. It's very easy to do. Follow the simple instructions. And if you have any questions, post them down below. If you enjoyed my tutorial, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're interested in any of the new products, I did show my unboxing video. I will link that video at the end here. If you want to know more about foiling, make sure you subscribe and follow along. And also join my Facebook group, the Foiling Snobs Club. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget the thumbs up and to subscribe. And if you're going to do shopping, make sure you click yes to cookies. I will have the affiliate links down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye-bye.